Hi, my name is Chloe McDonald, and I did my video project on vitamin D and seasonal depression. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin that helps regulate calcium and phosphate levels in the body and in the blood. It also plays an important role in certain immune functions, cell growth and differentiation, blood pressure control, and insulin secretion. Most of our body's vitamin D is synthesized using the skin using sunlight and UVB rays, but the majority of people still require intake of vitamin D in their diets to reach adequate levels. Only about 10% of our vitamin D comes from food sources like salmon, eggs, milk, cod liver oil, canned tuna, and other fortified cereals. Salmon contains about 526 IUs of vitamin D, or 66% of our daily value, while eggs hold 37 IU, or 5% of our daily value. Milk can range from 115 to 130 IUs per cup, or about 15 to 22% of our daily value. Cod liver oil is one of the highest, which has 448 IUs per teaspoon, which makes up about 56% of our daily value. Canned tuna, on the other hand, has 268 IUs, or about 34% of our daily value, and fortified cereals can range from 54 to 136 IUs per serving, which is up to 17% of our daily value. The recommended daily allowance for men and women is about 15 micrograms per day, with the daily value being at max 10 UGs per day. On the other hand, 90% of vitamin D is synthesized by the skin using UVB rays of a specific wavelength of 290 to 315 nanometers to convert 7-dehydrocholesterol to pre-vitamin D, and which converts into vitamin D. Most adults require 15 to 30 minutes of sun exposure a day over a significant amount of skin area to produce adequate amounts of vitamin D. The time of day, latitude, clothing, and sunscreen all affect vitamin D synthesis. For example, at our latitude, no vitamin D is really synthesized by the skin during winter months, around November-ish through February. Therefore, people typically require additional vitamin D from their diets. The best time to be exposed to the sun is typically during peak daylight hours around 11 to 2 p.m., and typically during the summer months where the sun's UV is stronger. Skin color and age also play a role in the time needed to produce adequate vitamin D. For example, dark-skinned people require 10 times more sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D as a light-skinned individual. Aging reduces vitamin D production in the skin, as there is a decrease in 7-dehydrocholesterol in older individuals compared to younger individuals. So those who are older and with darker skin require more sun exposure to produce adequate vitamin D. In terms of deficiency, the vast majority of the population has suboptimal levels of vitamin D. Deficiency of vitamin D can lead to rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults, which explains a tendency for bones to become softened and deformed. Deficiency also has damaging effects on mood, bone loss, muscle cramps, bone and joint pain, and general whole body fatigue. So how does this tie into seasonal depression, you might ask? Well, seasonal affective disorder, otherwise known as seasonal depression, is a type of depression that is associated with the changing of seasons and the loss of sunlight through the fall and winter months. Vitamin D levels in the body are heavily influenced by the amount of sunlight available on any given day. With sunlight being limited in winter months, vitamin D deficiency is increasingly possible. Deficiency may cause serotonin levels in the body to drop, which can trigger an onset of depression. It is suggested that with vitamin D supplementation through winter months, the symptoms of seasonal depression can be reduced. There is adequate evidence in support of the positive association between vitamin D and depression. The central nervous system has vitamin D receptors located in areas of the brain associated with depression. This indicates that vitamin D can act as a neuroactive steroid, as it plays a key role in regulating the expression of neurotransmitters and also in the regulation and production of neurotrophic factors. Vitamin D activates the genes that makes the enzyme tryptophan hydroxylase 2, otherwise known as TPH2. TPH2 converts tryptophan to serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is our body's happy chemical, so levels in the brain drastically influence our overall mood. Suboptimal levels of serotonin can lead to neuropsychiatric illness, including depression. Adequate intake of vitamin D is essential for the production of serotonin to keep those levels up. Individuals with polymorphisms in serotonin genes are already predisposed to dysregulation in the production and metabolism of serotonin, so any additional decrease in serotonin production, likely as a consequence to vitamin D deficiency, furthers the risks of those defects. Overall function, sensory gating, and impulsive behaviors that trigger depressive behaviors are largely impacted here. Those diagnosed with depression are typically found to be deficient in vitamin D, which indicates a clear relationship between insufficient vitamin D and the progression of depression. The association between vitamin D deficiency, serotonin depletion, and the onset of depression suggests that vitamin D consumption and supplementation can be used to treat seasonal depression. Lack of sunlight in winter months can cause vitamin D deficiency, so consuming a balanced diet that includes adequate intake of vitamin D or taking vitamin D supplements can compensate for that loss of vitamin D production through sunlight. In addition to that, sunlight lamps have been made so that people with suspected vitamin D deficiency, especially in winter months, can use this light that produces UVB rays to help increase vitamin D production in the skin. Increasing vitamin D production and consumption in winter months will in turn increase serotonin production, with serotonin levels staying at optimal levels, similar to what they would be at in the sunny summer months. Seasonal depression can be combated and treated. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about how vitamin D is so essential in creating happiness in our body and also combating diseases like depression.